You are watching Fugitive Red Eye, and I previously reviewed the series Higurashi no Nakakoroni, or When They Cry. Specifically, the actual full title would be When the Cicadas Cry, but it's often abbreviated simply to When They Cry or Higurashi. I will most likely be using the terms interchangeably throughout this video. There are 4 total sets of OVAs, starting with the cat-killing chapter, which is only a singular episode, then Rei, which is 5 episodes, then Kira, which is 4 episodes, and finally Outbreak, which is 1 double-length episode. In the US, the only one of these that has been released is Rei, so all the rest will have to be imported to be watched. But anyway, let's get on with it. Let's start off with the cat-killing chapter. I'm surprised how much I liked this given the title. I expected them to just be slaughtering cats, but no, it's actually metaphorical in the sense of the old adage, curiosity killed the cat. It starts off with a typical punishment game, which is kind of a staple in the Higurashi series, and they're parading around town wearing stupid outfits. To try and avoid further embarrassment, they decide to go to an abandoned village near an old quarry. Of course, some of them involved don't want to go near the quarry because the quarry is kind of a taboo place. Stories of death surround this quarry, and they tell those stories to Keiichi to discourage him from going. This is only a single episode rather than a multiple episode arc as the other OVAs are. And this one was actually developed to be watched in conjunction with Season 1. It was released between Seasons 1 and 2, which is why it has the updated animation from Season 2, but still has the Season 1 intro and outro. However, Rika's hair color is still the blue color from Season 1 rather than the purplish color from Season 2. The way this episode is framed, I think it's supposed to take place between 2 episodes of Season 1, but it's been so long since I've seen Season 1, I couldn't say which 2 episodes it goes between. Perhaps on rewatching I will be able to tell. But anyway, let's move on. Now let's talk about When They Cry Rei. When They Cry Rei is the second OVA, consisting of a total of 5 episodes, which include a 3-episode arc sandwiched between 2 unrelated episodes. The first unrelated episode is about them taking a trip to the swimming pool, and something to do with a magic swimsuit. Again, it's a lighthearted, comedic take on it, which I'm not the biggest fan of. It's one of the things I'm not the biggest fan of in the Higurashi series overall, but it's not as annoying as, let's say, the first episode of When They Cry Kira, which I'll be talking about in a moment. As for the 3-episode arc, I love the 3-episode arc. It's much, much more classic Higurashi. Although it doesn't have the brutality, it definitely feels more in tone with the second season than it would the first. Basically, it begins with Rika being hit by a truck and killed. And because of that, she's reincarnated in another world, but this time everything's different. Everyone's happy, and none of the bad things that have happened to the protagonists in the previous series happen now. With that being said, that arc goes for 3 episodes, and it's very enjoyable, and I definitely recommend it if you like the first and second seasons. As for the second unrelated episode, which comes after that arc, it's alright. It's just another cliched romance anime sort of thing, but it's not terrible, it's not great. There's no real stakes, and it has some of the cutesy shit that I don't like, but other than that, it's okay. But I really do like that 3-episode arc. And that's all I have to say about When They Cry Rei. Now let's talk about When They Cry Kira. When They Cry Kira is the 3rd OVA set, released in 2011. This set of OVAs doesn't actually follow a set of arcs or even a singular arc. In fact, each episode is its own separate story, and each one is a different genre. The first episode is an ecchi episode, meaning it's over-sexualized, and it's basically about the main character, Keiichi Maibara, fantasizing about all his female friends and how he could punish them in an embarrassing sexual way. It's really dumb, and frankly, it's not even really worth seeing. The second episode is a magical girl fighter, similar to Cutie Honey or Sailor Moon. It definitely takes some inspiration from Sailor Moon, especially with the transformations. This episode was somewhat decent. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I'd care to admit. It's not particularly great. It's okay. It's very much not When They Cry, though. Like, the tone is way too lighthearted and nothing really seems to be at risk. They're fighting against a group of evil magic users and people go crazy because of this fog. But obviously the brutality is still gone, and throughout this entire set of OVAs, there actually isn't any of the brutality, at least in the Kira section of it. The 3rd episode is a very cliched anime romance involving a love rectangle between Keiichi, Mion, Shion, and Reina. Basically, they're all interested in him, and they all fight over it. It's very predictable and very overplayed. However, there are still a few laughs to be had in it, particularly with Rika and Satoko trying to start a bloodbath with everyone, which is very uncharacteristic of them, but it's still enjoyable. It also has a very slight fourth wall break. And the 4th episode is my favorite of the Kira set. It is a time travel episode, and it brings back a lot of what Higurashi is known for. It doesn't bring back the violence, But it does bring back the supernatural element with a time-traveling shrine, and it brings back a lot of the emotion, and most of all, and probably my favorite thing it brings back, is the element of mystery to it. There's a mystery to be solved, and they go through and they solve it, similar to how the arcs had different mysteries that need to be investigated in the first season. Anyway, that's it for When They Cry Kira. And finally, on to When They Cry Outbreak. This is definitely the most violent of all of the OVAs, and it doesn't have any of the cutesy stuff whatsoever. That being said, it's not without its flaws, which I will go over. Let's first, however, start with the plot. Outbreak starts out with the village being quarantined by the government, because of deaths attributed to a virus. Now, I can't tell if they were going for this being a different virus or the same parasitic one from the earlier seasons, because they do mention the brain parasites and everyone does go crazy as well, so it's hard to say. But regardless, the village gets quarantined off, and the villagers, of course, think Ayashiro's curse, and the village tries to take out our protagonist. So because of that, they decide they need to escape. But before they can leave, they have to go rescue Satoko, who the villagers intend to drown. Keiichi and Reina go to rescue her, and they get really into killing the villagers. Like, they seem to be enjoying it a lot. Which is fine, because that makes it more entertaining, but it's something that I thought is worth mentioning. Other than that, there's not much else to be said about the plot other than the village wants to kill them, the virus is spreading, and it feels like it's going to be the end of the world. I actually really enjoyed this one, and it's definitely worth checking out. The only real flaw it has is that I do feel that the ending is kind of a cliffhanger. Now, I do think that they may resolve it someday, but it has been a few years since that came out, so it's hard to say. But out of the OVAs, Outbreak is definitely the most serious in tone. So how would I rank them? I'd say that Outbreak is probably my favorite, followed by that 3-episode arc in Rei, then the cat-killing chapter, then Kira. And with Kira, the only one that I really like is that 4th episode. The second and third are alright, but I do not like the first at all. But anyway, I definitely recommend checking out at least Outbreak, Rei, and Cat Killing Chapter. Kira is worth checking out just for a completionist's sake, but don't expect a whole lot from it. Anyway, this has been Fugitive Red Eye, and you have a great rest of the day.
Subscribe to Fugitive Red Eye.